Hey boys and boys, it's about 10:05 p.m. on March 3rd, 2011, and this week's topic is passing. And more so our thoughts on the term and not so much do we pass and all that stuff. Which is cool. So, I think I might have said this in one of my previous, not my previous, but one of the previous topics when it was passing, and I did mention about how the term was problematic, which I think pretty much every video so far has mentioned how it's problematic, because it talks about if we call it passing, there's an implied failure, meaning if you don't do things a certain way, you fail at being who you are, which is just some heavy-handed stuff they're saying, trying to tell someone that they failed at being themselves. That's messed up. On top of the fact that in terms of the topic, many trans people, not just trans guys, but in the various sections of the trans community, many trans people will feel it an obligatory duty to point out to someone else exactly what they're doing wrong, by saying, you don't walk the right way, your voice sounds too much like this or that, you should change this, blah blah blah. And that can be really, really hurtful, like I don't like it when someone tries to tell me you shouldn't do this or that, it's so yeah, I think in terms of it, it's a damaging concept, or damaging to use the word passing. I know that's what pretty much most of us have been acquainted with, when we come to the community, when we find out about it, everyone's talking about who passes, blah blah blah, or how to do it, etc. But yeah, better terms, such as, instead of saying I passed as this, you could say I was read as this. They saw me for who I am. They saw my gender. They recognized my gender. Things that basically are like, they affirmed me. They saw me for who I was, not for I didn't, pass as something I'm not. And like Brennan said, misgender is a good way of replacing the term I didn't pass, because it does sort of get to that point of like, they got it wrong. The other person, not me, they did. So misgender, being read or recognized or affirmed, etc. I think personally, actually, the term passing, since it happens with, I don't want to say every trans person, because I can't make that claim, but I do think there's a good number of us who have to, at some point in our lives, be our birth genders. And what I know is that for me, like, being birth name, being who I was, or who everyone saw me as, that's passing. Having to be that again, having to be around my family and pretend like I'm not Alex, that's passing, if anything. And sometimes I can get away with that, and I pass real well. Except now I've come out to them, so no more passing is that, it's gone in the past. Except with my grandmother. So yeah, I think that's passing is like most appropriate when it's applied to having to be something you're not, as in having to be the person everyone thought you were for however many years or times or whatever. Having to be that's passing. Anyway, I don't know if I really can give passing tips, because like I said before, sometimes members of the community can get a little overzealous and decide what things would be beneficial for a person to retain and what things wouldn't be, regardless of whether the person they're telling this to wants to keep those things or not. So I'm just going to say, if you find a general sense of, like, if there's something you feel makes you comfortable, um, I'd advise you not to like immediately do away with it because it might not make you pass, or it might not allow like help people see you as you are. And it's only because like, you know, there are things about me that like I'm okay with, you know, that I don't feel like I need to do any kind of major overhaul with, even though other guys would like, I guess, flip out. I don't know. For example, there are days when I don't bind, mostly due to the fact that my chest, for someone my size, I'd say this is like one of the biggest benefits to being fat and trans, is that if you have a rather small chest, you can just sort of get away with it being moobs. Yes, man boobs. And so there are days that I would just sort of not bind, you know, and a lot of passing tips would be like, bind your chest, bind your chest, bind your chest. But for me, on some days, you know, when I'm feeling okay, when I'm feeling like I'm just sort of lazy, I don't really want to put my binder on, or my binders are just fucking gross and I just don't want to put them on today, you know, I won't do it. And I don't feel any pressure from, I don't want to feel any pressure from others telling me to like to bind, because this is what trans guys do, and if you don't do this, so yeah, that's my passing tips and stuff. Sorry. Now to questions. Questions I remember. Eli asked what our favorite childhood movie was. And gosh, there's just so many. I liked Spice World. Which, watching it now, it's sort of like, well, still like a huge trip down nostalgia lane. I liked a lot of Disney movies, although again, like watching it now, it's sort of like an eye-opener, like, yeah, I Spice World is the only one that can come to my mind right now, so let's just go with Spice World for now. Actually, no. I'm going to replace that for just a slight second. It was this little short from McDonald's, yeah. It was a video that they gave us, or it was like on a cassette, and it was just like how to eat right with Willy Munchite or something. And I was talking about, you know, foods that are good, foods that are bad, and like, I bet my mom can like attest to this, or someone could attest to the fact that like I would watch that shit a lot, over and over. You know, it was just a fucking advertisement for McDonald's, basically, while also teaching you about the healthy eating and stuff. But I fucking loved it. I guess you could call it a movie, and I watched it during childhood, so there. Brandon's question, what job would you have tomorrow if you could have any job in the world? Shit. If I could have any job in the world and, like, be absolutely qualified for it and no qualms or anything with it, I would probably go with something like in film animation, or like comic book creating or writing, like basically creating stories and narratives and like art and stuff. Even though I would rather, in terms of like what I'm trying to do right now, is I'm trying to go for more of teaching and foreign languagey things. I don't know, stuff. You know, I would want to go with something with creative, because I some days I just fucking love it, and I wish that I could just make that my career and make stories and create things like that. You know, but anyway, I gotta hurry this up because otherwise I'm not gonna have enough time. Kyle's question was, or the question I think was like, how do you sleep when you sleep? Like backside or whatever. And usually it's side or on my stomach. One of the sides are on my stomach. I really dislike being on my back. I just can't, you know. It'll only be like for a little bit, and then I'm like, alright, and So yeah, that's that. My video is like now running over 10 minutes, and that's just a little bit. So for my question this week, cupcakes, to yellow cake or not to yellow cake? I personally, yellow cake. All the time, every time. So yeah, that's that, boys and boys. I'll see you next Thursday. Oh, BT Jobs, my birthday's tomorrow. So I'll see you later, boys and boys. Have a happy another week without me.